Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Tom Hucker joins an increasingly crowded race for county executive. COVID Kabuki Theater. Montgomery County reimposes a mask mandate while D.C. removes theirs. And the first public look at the proposed council redistricting map doesn't go so well. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the former membership director for the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Phil Bell, civic activist, Cary Lamari, and special guest commentator, former county council member, Nancy Floreen. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. County Council President Tom Hucker announced this week that he's planning to run for the county executive seat in 2022. Hucker joins an already crowded field, including the sitting county executive, Mark Elrich, who's seeking re-election, as well as council members Hans Reimer and businessman David Blair. We're exceedingly fortunate today to have former council member Nancy Floreen with us today to help us analyze this race. Welcome to 21 This Week, Nancy.
Thanks for having me.
We're looking forward to your insight on this. Yeah. Nancy, I asked my late father-in-law, who served in Congress for 36 years, why he entered politics, and his response was he thought he could do a better job than the other guy. So with all of these candidates running for county executives, is it that simple? Do they just think they can do a better job than Mark Elrich? And if so, what's Mark doing wrong?
Well, I think that's certainly the case. Tom is suffering from the disease that affects all people who act as council president, because you become the speaker for the county in many ways, and you are reminded that you're terrific at it. And so, Tom is with the redistricting going on as well. It looks to me like Tom's in that wacky district that includes Tacoma Park, Garrett Park, and Kensington. And if that's the case, he's going to have a run for his seat no matter what, because that's a new district for him. So he's looking for a job. Hans needs a job. And David Blair, he's out there trying to make things better himself. So, it's ego, ego, ego. It's sort of a repeat of 2018. And council members, get frustrated dealing with the county executive on various levels, and they always feel that they could do a better job. There's no question about that.
So when we look at the race, and you've mentioned all three candidates, it's certain, in their announcements, Hucker and Hans Reimer paid lip service to improving the business climate in the county, but it really seems when you analyze it that Elrich, Hucker, and Reimer will be trying to out-progressive one another, just as they have, for the last 2 years. Well,
the good news is they can carpool to all the various events, because they all live about a mile from each other. And basically, they're all from Tacoma Park. All the politicians these days are from Tacoma Park. And so it's just what it is. It's typical. The business issue, I don't think is a winner particularly. It hasn't won elections for other people in the past. Most of the business people actually are Republicans. They don't vote in the Democratic primary anyways, no matter what I tell them to switch parties and then switch back. So they don't. So consequently, the business community really has never had an active role in any of this. They make contributions, but they don't vote. And that's kind of a challenge. So I don't think it's a selling issue.
Well, Cary, that Nissan Leaf that Mark owns is going to be pretty tight if they try to carpool. So in the 2018 election, as Nancy talked about, we saw a very divided field, but it was Mark's base that was able to be sufficiently large to let him win. Are we going to see a repeat in 2022?
It's difficult to say at this point. You've got Hans Reimer, Hucker, Mark Elrich, all Tacoma Park, Silver Spring. And then you've got David Blair sitting on the wings, not saying a word about the issues. He's a businessman. It's an entirely different election. You got to look at the council in the past 4 years. All of them have been running for election. That's been seen in Viva White Oak and that contentious, oh, Mark's not supportive of it. He voted against it. Yeah, but he's got $40 million waiting to put into it. We need jobs. Get the jobs. You've got the Beltway debacle and what's going to happen there. And the council has to step in and become county executive and negotiate with the governor. It's been 4 years of not knowing who's running the county. That's the problem. They need to walk across the street, sit down, develop a strategic plan, and get to business. But they haven't seemed to do that. That's my opinion.
So, Phil, I polled our fellow panelist on 21 This Week panelist, Mark Unkefer, and I asked him, whether or not there was going to be a candidate running for county executive. And he said there's still no one that has mentioned that they're going to be stepping up. So what are Republicans going to do? You heard Nancy's proposal, which is all Republicans should at least change their party affiliations for the primary. Is that what Republicans are going to do?
No, I don't think that's a great idea. The first thing, and this is and we talked a little bit about off air, is, growing the grassroots. Now, the Montgomery County Republican Party has a very, very strong party organization itself. But one of the things that happens when you've lost for a long time is you lose a lot of the grassroots, the people who may not agree with you on 100% of the issues, but they agree with you enough that they'd cast a ballot for you. It's to go around and make sure that those people know that you're there, know that you want to be, that you need them on their team. And then number two, to get them active. So that's step one. And step two, I do believe there's going to be a Republican candidate, because one of the things that we saw from what happened in Virginia and New Jersey is that when you challenge Democrats, even in difficult areas, there are going to be people who will go out, even if they don't necessarily share your party registration, but they'll listen to what both sides have to say, and they may very well vote for you. So when you put that combination together and add in what we've all been talking about here with the business community, well, the business community itself, rarely is in a position to swing elections, except maybe in the state of Georgia. We're now more than ever attuned to the impact that government can have on business and that business has on us. So you will see, I think, more and more interest in what's going on there. So that actually does portend to better Republican showing in this race and in the future.
Well, we'll have to wait and see whether there's a breakthrough and a crossover of support based on the same issues that we saw in Virginia. Up till now, those education issues have not been in the forefront of voters' minds. Even in the last school board election race, they were not. They were kind of muted when with some candidates talking about critical race theory. It never really came out as a strong issue that people were opposed to. So, Nancy, right now, who do you think has the advantage more than a year? We're even a year. We're not even. We got time before the filing deadline.
Right. Look, Mark has it to lose. The real issue is, will people run a negative campaign against him? That's not well received in this county. I've been involved in some of those things. So are people going to point out Mark's flaws? And are they flaws that speak to the electorate? I think that's going to be the big challenge for anyone challenging an incumbent. Hans and Tom and Mark are pretty indistinguishable, except Mark is farther to the left, I think, than the two of them. But how do you convey that?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, Cary, I'm going to let you have the last word, because there are those who feel that they're going to focus mostly on the response to COVID, and that Mark has done a pretty good job on that.
He may have, but I still believe the Thrive and the Attainable Housing Initiative is going to carry the day. And if a Republican actually catches on to that, we might see a Connie Morella type of county executive. I mean, that's where we're heading to.
Well, you're going to have the last word. And when we come back from this short break, the county council revised the COVID Kabuki Theater one more time. Stay tuned. And welcome back. As viewers know, the county council reimposed the largely symbolic mask mandate on Saturday, November 19th. Ironically, the District of Columbia, Mayor Muriel Bowser announced the end of the DC mask mandate tomorrow, on Monday. Phil, according to the CDC, wearing a face mask and being vaccinated are the best ways to slow the spread of the disease. But there are separate studies that show that mask wearing by itself is only 10% effective in spreading the spread. What are we doing here?
So, you and the rest of our viewers have heard me say it over and over again. It's not that masks are 10% effective. It's that they're 0% effective, because if there were, again, we would have long since been done with COVID. If lockdowns would have worked, we'd have been done. If masks would work, we'd have been done. So there's no benefit. There is a danger here. And the danger is that when this so-called dimmer switch, which is what this strategy is implemented, you're going to end up with people and businesses simply taking these measures into permanence. And the permanence of a lot of these measures is what's harmed us as a society. Think about for a second, especially as we talk about here on this show, about the acrimony between the right and the left. How can you start to understand your fellow human being when you can only see half of their face? Or you're only seeing them through the TV or the computer like we are. We need to end this, not only because it's annoying and ineffective, but also because it's helping to further divisions, and that is going to create long-term damage to our society.
So, Nancy, I call this a kabuki theater mainly because, as we all know, you walk into your favorite restaurant that has the tables sufficiently distanced from one another. And as soon as you sit down, you rip off your mask and you sit there for 45 minutes to an hour with unmasked, except, if you get up to go to the restroom. Isn't this just, for a show? I mean, the county has 79% of its county residents have been vaccinated with at least one shot.
I don't think it's so easy. And my experience has been interesting. My experience since when they went into the mode where there's no mask requirement, most people wearing masks. And I think that we're talking about Montgomery County, Phil, not, your national or statewide issues. Montgomery County people are by and large very health conscious. And I don't think they'd pick a fight over all of this. Now, it's not perfect. Geez, Austria just initiated a lockdown today. The whole world is mixed up over this. It is not easy. And so I think it's not fair to pick a fight with the Montgomery County Council. They're trying to do the right thing, employing some standards. Nothing is perfect, but people know folks who've died from this. Nancy, it's a problem.
There's something that's very easy, and the standard should be, if you believe that you need to protect yourself by wearing a mask, then you can do that. If you want people to be around you that wear masks, then you should ask them to do so. But the idea that we've got to bludgeon everybody and pick out that one guy, and because I'm usually that one guy, who doesn't want to do it, and he's going to be the problem, and he's the one who's spreading it. No, that doesn't make sense.
But that's not what's happening. It's this countywide
that's why
policy.
These mandates are here.
Well,
I want to bring Cary into the discussion, because Cary, I want you to take those two separate threads from Nancy and from Phil and put it in context, because frankly, it seems that we've gotten into a metric decision. We have this objective metric that we're following, whether or not it actually makes sense or not. And it just seems that our political leaders have gone down a path and they don't know how to change it, even though it doesn't seem to be working very well. It seems to be working well in the sense that we've been able to control COVID, but in terms of our social relations, it doesn't seem to be working well. I'll give you the last word.
People have to take personal responsibility. That's the bottom line. I'm a service contractor. I would never endanger a customer's life. I try to wear my mask. I just think that that's important. I'm fully vaccinated, but still, I believe we each have a responsibility. The county council said that once we have 85% vaccination rate, we're not going to have to wear the mask. And of course, Sweden has reached that magic number where it's they've got the lowest transmission rate. Like I said, if you want to take care of your family, you want to protect your neighbors, you want to protect the society in general, you got to take personal responsibility. whether the government tells you or not.
Well, I think that's the thread that we're all speaking to, is that
Right.
individually we have to take care of ourselves. Now, I want to go on to our last topic, which is something Nancy alluded to earlier in our first topic that we were leading off, and that's the importance of redistricting. And this week, the County Council held public hearings on the newly proposed council map that adds an additional 2 council districts to the County Council. Now, recalling that the driving force between the charter amendment that was adopted, between the 2 competing charter amendments that were adopted, was to add the additional seats, was the dissatisfaction by up-county voters who felt that they had a lack of representation. So it wasn't surprising when you see the newly drawn up map that it was widely criticized by the public. Cary, why was there criticism, and by whom?
It's real simple. You're dividing up communities. You're dividing their political engagement. You're dividing their economic engagement. You're dividing their civic engagement. Whether you're in Camp Mill, North Bethesda, Leisure World in the Aspen Hill area, or Travilla and North Potomac, when you have communities that have to work together to, have a reasonable economic climate, a civic engagement where they want to work together, and you cut them in half, right? Now they've got to deal with 2 different council members. It's just complicated. Of course, I agree with Marilyn Balcom. I have to say this. We went through this because of the lack of investment in the up county and in the East County, right? We were trying to get 9 districts. She was the one that was opposed to it. This is what's ironic here. Now, instead of 1 in 5, she's got 1 in 7 council members. It's just
well, Phil, I'm going to go to Nancy because she knows the players here. Nancy, I was rather surprised when I read all of the headlines in the newspapers about how wonderful it was that the eastern part of the county was getting its own council, quote unquote, own council seat. And I recall that Nancy Navarro was representing that district. I recall that Marilyn Praisner and her husband after her represented that district. The idea that the eastern part of the county wasn't represented, I frankly think is insulting to those members. So what's going on here?
Well, someone made the case and the voters bought it. I think the whole issue of adding new council members was a waste of money and it's not going to help anything. Look, Maryland and Ike are the ones who opposed most of the development on the east part of the county. They were never business friendly anyways. There's a lot of history here that's affected the East County. I think they had Valerie, they had Tom. They've had Nancy, they've had plenty of representation. They just don't like the result. And frankly, the East County has never been easy to begin with because of the way it was developed. But it's not just about that. I mean, the issue with redistricting, their initiative priority appears to have been to protect Gaithersburg and Rockville and keep them together. And that has driven a lot of the other decisions. I don't know about the inside story about why they picked certain arrangements. I've been redistricted now into the one sort of like Roger Berlin's district, the one that no, I'm still in Andrew Friedson's district.
Andrew Friedson,
but the legislative district for me will now be David Trone, I believe. And the games are played. It is political. I am not sure why they made certain choices. I'm curious as to what they do with that wacky district that goes from Tacoma Park to North Bethesda. That was designed to suit somebody, and I'm not sure who. Gabe.
Well,
I don't know.
I want to wrap up with Phil. Phil, there was a lot of discussion in the support. If you look at the supporting materials that the Redistricting Commission sent forward, was on how the racial component and makeup of each district was now aligned. Should that be their focus, or should the focus be on keeping neighborhoods together?
Keeping neighborhoods together. There should be zero focus on racial makeup because, I can't say it enough. The more and more that you promote this idea of racial equity, or, you have blacks over here or Hispanics over there or something like that, the more and more that you end up creating something that I talked about earlier, which is these permanent divisions that are really unhelpful in general for what we're trying to do, whether you're talking about at the county level, state, or national. And when I say what we're trying to do, I mean live in the same area. What does it benefit you to say, well, either you're going to have a majority minority district, or you're going to do this, or because of the special interest? There is no special interest based on racial makeup or background. We all have the same goals, which is to have more money tomorrow than we do today, and more opportunity tomorrow than we do today.
I'll go quickly, Nancy. Do you think there'll be any changes to the map, or is it locked in place already?
I would guess it's pretty locked. I'm not sure what the testimony has been, but it's hard to redraw those lines. Once you get going, it's hard to stop. So
yeah, I think
I'd be surprised.
The freight train has left the
Pretty
station
much, yeah.
on this one, only because of timing. They have to get ready for the upcoming election. I think it's going to be a failure, and I think we're going to see another movement for 11 districts as opposed
Why not?
Why not? Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from the short break. Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Phil Bell.
Thank you, Casey. Next week, we're all about to celebrate Thanksgiving, which is one of the biggest travel times every year. Unfortunately, some of the people, especially a certain guy in the White House, is looking at ways to stop those of us who haven't taken a COVID vaccine from traveling where we want to go. It's the idea spreading through the government faster than COVID-19. And what they're talking about is taking away the ability of people who haven't gotten a vaccine to travel by train, plane, or however they choose to. It's unconstitutional. It's blatantly unconstitutional. It shouldn't even be discussed. Unfortunately, it is. So don't let the government take away your freedom to travel, to see your friends, to see your family, and enjoy this beautiful country that we have.
Thank you, Phil. Cary Lamari, your parting shot.
Thank you, Casey. You know what? The most important issue for the last 60 years is being considered right now before the county council. Thrive Montgomery 2050. It's going to change the way of life in Montgomery County. It'll lead to doubling of the density in Montgomery County. And there's a lot of fuzzy feelings on how much it costs and whether we can afford it. We may even see a displacement of a lot of our working families in the county. That's just not acceptable. It's especially not acceptable during the holiday season. I'd like to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving, and thank you, Casey, for having me on tonight.
No, thank you, Cary. Appreciate it. Nancy, this is your first opportunity for a parting shot on 21 this week. Make the most of it.
Thank you. Well, what I would say to people is please pay attention. Please follow things. One of the things I've remembered after being on the council is how ill-informed our community is about what's going on. If you follow the details, we don't have a lot of press coverage these days, but I'd hate to think that you're getting your information from Cary or from Phil as to what's actually occurring and how you should think. It's difficult to follow, but land use issues, social policy, whatever's being decided at the local level, I would encourage you to follow it. Tune into the county council, learn about it, pay attention. So when you're voting, you know what you're voting for. Most people don't. So that's what I'd ask everyone to do and think about doing in this holiday season. Be well, everybody, and take care, and wear a mask if you're on a plane.
Thank you, Nancy. And you left out one important endorsement. Tune in each and every week.
Tune in, yeah, absolutely.
The Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show, 21 this week. Come on. We need to pay the bills here, Nancy.
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you. These were great discussions, even though we differ on some things. And again, I want to echo the sentiments that we all have said today about having a very happy and wonderful Thanksgiving for everyone. I especially want to thank Nancy, Phil and Cary for being here. And tune in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.